Hello there! Welcome back to Charles Circle and welcome back to Captain of Industry. Last time, we expanded our train network to cross this bridge and connect up to our second island as we continue our march towards a sizable Electronics 2 factory in that area. Today, we'll continue expanding both our main island's infrastructure and onto our third island. Alright, first things first though, I asked everyone for island names last episode, and we'll let suggestions keep flowing in, but there was a resounding most popular suggestion for our main island, so I think we can lock that one in at least already. And that name is Wizzy Wizcat's suggestion of St. Charles Island. I assume this refers to St. Charles Borromeo, the 16th century Archbishop of Milan and patron saint of having an upset stomach. We've got a lot of suggestions for island number 2 around Silicon Ridge, that sort of thing, which certainly feels on topic given the factory we'll build there. So maybe we'll aim to make a call on that one next video and aim for island number 3's name the episode after that. Without further ado though, let's get into today's to-dos. Alright, so what are we going to get up to today? Well, I'm going to try to keep track today. We'll see if it sticks in the Steam Notes tab, Shift plus Tab if you find this helpful. The first thing we need to do is get some more steel going. Our current production is, of course, not enough. This is steel and Captain of Industry. We should be probably upgrading this every other episode, at least. And I think what we'll do today is at least start, and hope it's enough, by unpausing and upgrading this last set here, increasing by 50%. In doing that, we are going to continue to increase our water consumption, and this is not working out that well. This reservoir here, it's insufficient for all of the industrial needs that we are currently drawing on it from. Good news, of course, is that we have plenty of extra water out this way for our farming setup, and a whole continually untapped reservoir out here that we can run via pipe out into this area. So part of what we're going to do today, and part of upgrading the steel capacity, is creating a single unified water main across this whole island. We might keep some things separate, like out here, but I think we're going to try to, more or less in one go, get everything connected together so that we can protect certain reservoirs and switch back and forth priority as we need to. So that, as part of our steel upgrade, is going to be our first big goal today. The second is a revamp about the way that we do concrete. Primarily, this is simply an issue of, well, I think this is going to be a big thoroughfare coming along the bridge and probably entering down this way into our manufacturing zone. This is probably both a highway and train travel path that we're going to want to make sure is nice and clear. And we, unfortunately, dropped our initial concrete setup right in the middle of all of that. And that's all right. We're not going to beat ourselves up for not being able to perfectly see the future. This is the sort of game where you should build everything as if it will last forever and tear everything down as if you always intended to keep it temporary. That's part of it. That's part of the game. So we'll do this the right way, which is to make sure that we're using new technologies, rescaling so that we're able to meet our new demands, and to consider if the needs of our base have evolved and change the way that we had this originally structured. So we'll do that over the course of the episode as well. It'll probably take a moment. We'll make sure, of course, that everything new is up and running and functional before we delete anything old, but it seems like something that we're going to need to do sooner or later, so why don't we get it in motion now? Third, I think, by the time we're all done with that, our last little bit of terraforming out this way should allow us to reach out onto island number 3. Fingers crossed. I don't know if we're going to need to do any terraforming on this end to make it line up, but I think by the end of the day, we should have a second bridge on the map, which would be pretty cool. Those things take a ton of what? Steel and concrete. There is a reason we are reinforcing those two things before we get to the bridge. Next thing we'll do is get some cracking going. Cracking is not something that we absolutely need to be doing right now in our refinery, but it's an important concept I want to make sure that we introduce, and we can build a system that will, at least be ready for our needs when we do hit them. Right now, we're burning all of our byproducts pretty productively out in the power plant here, but one day that will no longer be true. And when it is, we need something else to do besides lighting on fire, the flares, with our excess naphtha, heavy oil, etc. We also are going to try to get a little bit of hydrogen production beyond just the splitting out of the ammonia excess in this electrolyzer. So the technologies we're going to have today, we're going to finish reforming and cracking, which we started last episode, and we are going to queue up right away hydrogen production. We're not going to go full into hydrogen vehicles just yet. We don't quite have the throughput there, and it would require us to really revamp what we're solving for in this refinery. We'll probably get there in this playthrough, just not right now. After that, I have some odds and ends and a bit of a channel business section, maybe some announcement about some things next week. So stay tuned for that. As we said though, the first thing we want to do is get in here and get our steel factory upgraded. It's very straightforward. You've seen us do all of this before, of course. We need to upgrade each of these in place. We'll unpause them and this air separator. The one issue we're going to have though, and the reason we didn't do this initially, is that these all take 48, and 4 times 48 is, well, it's just short of 400, or just short of 200, and that's the limit of this belt. So we're going to have to create a second belt coming out of here and consider whether or not we should have a second crusher. I have a feeling that this buffer will be enough with the occasional boosting, but if it isn't, or if we simply want to be future-proof, we can of course slap down another crusher. So I'll hop into a quick time lapse and get after that. All right, I think that should work. We will let our trucks get after all of those changes here. As I said, we're gonna start by just boosting this intermittently and we'll see if it's enough. I'm gonna set to let us know if this is ever empty. We simply took the existing line here, still underneath, at the bottom of that stack, and we feed it from this side, and then the second temporary parallel one is gonna run out here and get these two until we're able to upgrade to the next level of belts. Then we can delete this and just run the whole thing down like so. I think this is going to be enough. I hope that this is going to be enough. If it's not, we can use that second belt to keep going and do another module here, I suppose. There's room for it. That's why we left it. I hope we don't have to get there so quickly. Let's see. So, as I mentioned, the other thing we need to do though is get some water going because, yeah, this is, it turns out, getting worse, not better, as time passes. So, let's go out here and add a few extractors. This is a decently sized reservoir, I believe. You can go check on that by placing a pump out here. 25K. It's bigger even than this one, right? This is only 20. Yep. So that's great. That means we should be able to get a few of these going here and just run a very long pipe out this way. Pipes I don't mind running a long distance as much as belts. They're a little bit cheaper to maintain and higher throughput. So I think we're going to be happy to do that for a while at least. So we're going to run it out this way, make sure that we connect up with the overflow from this and run a segment of it out along here so that it meets up with the remainder of our industrial water uses. So I'll dive in and take care of that as well. All right, I think this will work. Let's find out, as usual. But out here, I think with 25k, we can get away with 4 pretty comfortably of these fellas. And 48 times 4 will still fit into a 200 pipe. So a pipe 2 should be sufficient all the way out and along here. And we come out here, I hope, leaving enough room for a farm. Good, just in case. And we meet up here. We're going to prioritize, or at least give us the ability to bounce back and forth, but I imagine we're going to prioritize the furthest away water. I want to make sure, of course, that we're not draining this one. It has to pass through, and only after, hopefully, fulfilling all of the water needs of our crop generation and processing should backfill any excess that we need here. That said, once we've had the chance to join up there, this is basically a full 200. This, could be more. I think we do need to bump up to a pipe 3 for the remainder of this pipeline. And it'll come all the way out here, and it'll meet up with the rest of the water main, the distress one, right here. So this is going to be upgraded, I think, to a pipe 2. Yep. And this small amount of water required to make glass should be, and also to, well, not also, just, yeah, okay. No, there it is. There's some acid. That's right. There's some water consumption here and at the train station. There we go. So that is good. That is worth doing. And then out here, the remainder of it will come out along. You know what? This should be a pipe 3 even. Yeah, let's do that. Should come out here. And I imagine we're at least going to use that water to feed both of these uses, the steel as well as the exhaust scrubbing. And if we need to, we can even invert the direction of this pipe, send it back here, and try to cover these water needs as well. This, I don't think it's worth hooking up quite yet, although the copper factory will continue. So maybe we will need to connect that. Let's see. If we're able to just supply it from here, maybe we'll wait and reconnect that once we've cleared this area out so we can do it in a more, I don't know, forward-thinking manner. We'll see what else we have to work with. But yeah, so I think this should work. I'm going to let our trucks take care of all of it, and we'll adjust as necessary, as always. So there we go. There we go. I didn't accidentally unpause anything out here? No? Very good. All right. We're also going to need a few more people, so I'm sure I will snag a few adoptions off the world map, etc., but I'll come back to you in a moment when we have a completed product. See you then. Hey, just had our first battle with our newly upgraded ship. Let's see how... Oh my gosh. Yep. Just nuked a pair of patrol ships. Very good. What have we discovered? Microchip technology. Very good. This is a little bit further into the future. Hey, we actually got as loot some electronics 2 and 3. This is all very future stuff, so good to have now, I suppose, but not very actionable for quite some time yet. And our first bits of water have finally made it all the way out here. Very good. Maybe just to be safe, yeah, geez, we're cutting it close here, aren't we? Let's just go ahead and we'll invert this for now. Another oil rig and some loot out here. See, what's nice about having radar is when we got out here, this is what we just discovered, we can see what it is that's in the next one over. That looks like another settlement, actually. And this notification means we're done out here. Let's take a peek. Let's go with the cable stayed, same as last time, and see if we can just go directly here. That would be nice. And we can. Incredible. I think that's it. That's cool. It's even longer. It's got a third, I guess, segment here to connect up over land even. This is cool. I like this. Very nice. Yeah, you know, we could use bridge names too. We could use bridge names. These things are big, grand landmarks, you know? Something to keep in mind. If you got names for those too, just yell. Alright, so that's great. I think we're gonna call this an extremely low priority construction because it's going to take a while, and I want to make sure that we aren't spending steel that we don't have, that we need somewhere else to get it done. But I think this is good. I do wonder if our amphibious vehicles will be able to reach that segment. Let's double check that real quick. Can I find one? Are you nearby? There we go. Can we make it? We can. Perfect. All right. So that should take care of itself over time. What are we going to do with the mining crew in this area? Since I guess we don't have to go send anything over there. Suppose we could have them help out up here. The other thing that I'm thinking about from a terraforming perspective, we're going to run out, not of iron ore in total here, but of the easily accessible stuff pretty quick. This is what's next, and if you can see these gray caps, going to be a ton of rock that we have to sort through, and it's going to really slow down the rate that we actually pull iron out. Happened over here already a little bit, but it's going to get way worse, and if we have to go through basically this whole mountain just to get to this uncapped area again, it's going to be rough. So I kind of want to get up here to this plateau as well. It's a little awkward out and around, but I do think it needs to be done. So maybe that's what we'll do. What is this level here? 40, 41, something like that. So if we say, give us a little plateau to work with here. Come down like this. Of course, this will actually need to be mined as well. But I think this would work. That's now officially a bit much. Out to 20. How about that? So we'll tell them to do that. They'll, of course, accidentally mine some iron ore along the way here. And we'll find, I'm sure, a more elegant approach later, but I just want to make sure that we have access. You never want to be caught unawares with a switch off of a mine so critical as iron. So, all right, what we're going to do then is, this is not the right mine control tower. I don't want this one. This one's primary purpose, actually, is to make sure that what we're doing in this area is dumping dirt, right? So we'll narrow the focus back a bit here. And then we'll set up another mine tower. Call it here, I guess. All right, I hope that works. We'll keep an eye on it. But that should export out here. How's this going? Yeah, so this is, of course, draining down slowly. This is a 200 belt, even if this were perfectly supplied, and it's not always, as you can see. We certainly drain it here. If these buffers don't end up being enough to keep these all working when we need them to be, we'll have to either add more, probably a combination of the two, add a bit more on the mining throughput, as well as well, maybe a second crusher. Maybe we just boost this one and do some clever stuff with belts to have a second throughput. Here, rather than being cagey, I'll show you what I mean. The nice thing about these little conjoiners is that they have more throughput than a belt does by itself. So, if we want to get cute, what we can do here is say, well, of course, you know, this is boosted. We don't have a belt that can do 384 output. But if it goes directly into a connector, well, a connector has more throughput than that. And so we can actually get it all out in two parallel belts into the same storage. Same as we did here, it's just that, you know, this doesn't have two inputs, two outputs. The input is not solved this way, but we have it set up so that if you have a pure truckload of ore, you can drop it off directly here. And I think that should roughly offset it. We don't need it to do the full 384. We just need it to do enough to cover the extra, goodness, missing a recipe there, the extra 2 above the 200 that we were already doing. So, as always, we'll keep an eye, we'll adjust. but I think this works for now. Maybe you'll even find this clever. Because look at that, it's 2 full belts, right? Helpful trick. I don't know what I was doing earlier with all that weird pipe work over there. This is the better way to do this. We have a pipe balancer here. We still need to, of course, make sure that we can clear out the steam, right? So the input water here still has to be available, but we'll just backfill the excess from the rest of that pipe behind the storage, not in front of it. All right, well, this is helping this reservoir for sure. I was just sitting here chewing on it. I think we are gonna just go ahead and make the water connection out this way. There's no reason we would do it any other way in the longer run that I can think of. So we're gonna go ahead and dive in and do that now too. All right, I think that should work. Maybe just to be safe, let's bump this up one more, but we'll come across here. I promise all of this will get more cleaned up when we're done in this area. I was just out in this area, boosting temporarily our fertilizer production. Occasionally this drifts downwards. I have been doing this a little bit here and there, not enough to justify fully upgrading, but anyway, something that I've been doing, and if you find yourself needing to, that's what Unity is for, as long as it's not constant. And one of the things that's on my odds and ends list is to actually export the animal feed. In this area, we had collected up a bunch of animal feed, and then we sent it in here to our mixer to turn into compost. That was something that made sense back in the day when we didn't have just absolute gobs of compost coming out of our wastewater treatment setup out here. And these days, animal feed would actually be better used, I think, being dropped off in a boiler out here as we do for biomass. So I think I'm going to quickly redo some wiring here and we'll export it, and hopefully that is a better use for it. All right, so I think that actually simplifies things in the area, which is nice. So our animal feed from the food processor, the mill out here, and the other mill out here for ethanol, all run along the exact same pathway that they did, and it just shoots out to this storage right here, and we will have trucks take it away. Also, because these are the most important things that we can do, I'm going to move this one because this set of tiles annoys me and I couldn't fit a lift in here with just one tile, so really critical stuff here. All right, so very good. I think that's a nice way to simplify things, and we will, I think, also be able to stop boosting these. Very good. All right, let's check in here real quick. We've done our unified water main. We've done steel in its entirety, I would say. We've done the animal feed export as well. The bridge is begun, but not complete, so I won't check it off quite yet. I think it's probably time to do the concrete revamp. So let's talk first about why we're doing this. As I mentioned, this bridge is going to be essentially the lined up version of a highway coming through here and then probably intersecting with our other main thoroughfare for our manufacturing zone at a 90-degree angle, more or less. This will be the big intersection, I'm sure, eventually. That puts this square in the way. So, as I said, that's not a problem. That's something that's gonna happen in this game, and you shouldn't view it as a failure when that thing happens. And in fact, it's also an opportunity, as long as you do it the right way. So, first and foremost, we are not going to delete this until everything else is up and running. You never want to be caught in a catch-22 where in order to make the thing actually work, you need more of the parts from the factory that you just deleted. That's not great. And we're also going to use this as an opportunity to reassess how we do this production in the first place. We've got some better tech that we can use, larger crushers. We've got the gas kilns that I prioritized researching last episode. We just didn't get to this. And we should also think about scale. We might want to make this a little bit larger. So let's zoom back out and start thinking about the production steps. The first is this rotary kiln step. You know, we've talked a lot about expansive and compressive productions in the course of this playthrough, and this one is a pretty compressive one that we really haven't quite respected in that way. So one of the things that we could do would be to move our cement production out here and just transit the cement itself, the finished product, instead of all of the limestone. This wasn't such a big deal when we're here, but especially if we decide we want to relocate this further away from the mine, I think that that difference really does scale up. So that's the first thing I think we're going to do, is pull cement production out this way. And we'll make sure to use our new technology as well. So the first of our 3 blueprints for this project is here. This is straightforward. I'm going to place it right here, I guess, although the precise placement is not very important. This is the upgraded rotary kiln gas. It does twice the throughput of its predecessor. Just to show it back here, this is the basic one with the coal that we have in our current plant. It's twice the limestone requirement. It's twice the cement output. It is, well, it's twice the exhaust, but it's carbon dioxide instead because we're using fuel gas. This building, by the way, can also take hydrogen and in fact even give you back steam depleted, which is a great way to get some water, right? So that's nice, and in fact we even have some hydrogen that we've been kind of banking up over here. We're not going to use this for that today because I have another use for it, and that is the cracking technology. We'll come back to it in a minute. So we're going to stay on the fuel gas recipe. The other reason for that is we're just not quite producing hydrogen consistently enough in the same way that we are with fuel gas. We get fuel gas in excess from our wastewater treatment plant, from our excess crops, and from our refinery. It's enough sources that we don't have to worry about this fuel source at all. So we'll take the limestone. I'm just going to switch this down here. We'll have it come directly out of the ore sorting plant. That works for me. And of course, it'll come out onto these belts, and then the fuel gas itself comes out in these pipes. We return the cement, and all of the CO2 gets vented. Easy enough, right? Pretty straightforward. So we'll come back to this, but that's the move out here, and what that means is that we don't need this integrated into our actual concrete productions. So this was kind of an all-in-one approach. It was, everything you need is all right here, and that's, there's some value in that. But what breaking this out allows us to do is imagine things a little bit differently. It allows us to get more creative if we don't have to have that whole step inside every single time. And so what I'm imagining is, there are sort of 2 approaches. We could have one large centralized production where we bring in all of our rock and slag and we spit out this big ol' storage of concrete. We could also do a more distributed model where we send cement lots of little places, because each of these factories, by the way, produces a little bit of slag, and many of them are attached to mines that produce a little bit of rock. We could have lots of little cement or little concrete factories, essentially, one here, or maybe one here, right? And I think what we're going to do is maybe split the difference. And by that, I mean do both, I guess. I'm thinking that we will, it'd be fun just to explore both, I think. They both have their merits, and I'll show where we're going to use each. The first thing we're going to do is this central concrete production. We're going to place this right here. You can see the tiny pavement mark I gave myself before we started filming so I knew where to put this. We're going to place it right here for reasons I will explain in a moment. This is now a much larger setup, obviously. Let's walk through it. So we'll bring in our cement right here. We don't have to worry about our gas kilns. Very good. We will also bring in all of our rock and slag from here. I'm in the future, by the way, imagining train stations attached directly to this with a train line coming in like so and then looping back around. So this can really be quite high volume if we'd like it to be. These, of course, are our large crushers. We haven't taken advantage of them in our concrete setup before, but they do exactly what the smaller ones did with higher throughput. So we'll crush a bunch of rock here into gravel and a bunch of slag into crushed slag here. If we think about our recipes, cement, we're going to use the manufactured sand version here, water, and we need either our crushed slag or gravel. So what we're going to do, on the bottom floor, when the large crusher spits out from rock into gravel, it's going to have a few different options. It can go one of 3 different places, and we can prioritize however we'd like. The first, which I think by default we are going to prioritize, is into another crusher to turn that further into manufactured sand. This might seem odd. We have sand right here, right? But as you can see, it's really not a huge deposit and it's gone pretty quickly, the bits that we do already have. I think we're going to save what we do have remaining for glass for now. So we'll switch this over at this particular spot to the crushed sand or manufactured sand recipe only. And that'll continue on in this sort of ground floor transit and supply each of these concrete mixers. The other thing that we'll need to do is the crushed recipe, or the crushed slot in the recipe, which can be slag or it can be more gravel. So in theory, this whole thing runs without a drop of slag. It's just if we have slag, we can save on some rock. So up here, this balancer prioritizes in crushed slag, but it also accepts, if we need it, from the gravel output, gravel as a backfill when we don't have slag. And so that here will be our second level crushed recipe, or crushed item part of the recipe that goes into each of these mixers. They also prioritize the slag recipe. Finally, of course, they'll need the cement to come in here and some water, which we're going to hook up now to our water main from across the street. So we'll have to bring this over with another ramp, etc. We'll do that in a moment. What's all this about? Well, if we are going to delete this whole plant, the nice thing that we had going here was the all-in-one nature of it. We still need to make filter media somewhere, and we still need to make rail parts somewhere. We'll come back to rail parts, but we're going to do the filter media out here. So, filter media, same recipe, I believe. Gravel, manufactured sand, and some coal. We already have the gravel, second level here, coming along this conveyor. Goes in here, supplies the mixer, and then, by the way, continues along to the loose storage here so that any excess can be exported and more likely used to build railroad tracks rather than being consumed somewhere else, but either is valid. And then the exact same thing happens with the manufactured sand piece. So after this track goes past all of the concrete mixers, it continues forward. It again branches to fill the filter media recipe and also continue on here for export. Why would we export manufactured sand? Well, if we wanted to do a distributed model and absorb, say, some slag at one of our factories, we do still need the fine good, the manufactured sand or normal sand input recipe as well. I don't think we're going to send a lot of it, but, you know, it's here. We might as well. I was kind of on a roll, so I figured why not make one last output there? And I think that covers everything. Of course, we need a little bit of coal, right? A little bit of coal is the last ingredient for some filter media. So if we build this here, this extra module here in the bottom right, totally optional, you don't have to, but if we do, it'll allow us to delete that part of the concrete slab factory that we currently already have. The slabs themselves come out like this, and I have this lined up in this exact spot for a very specific reason, and that is that we don't have to, but we can feed directly into the concrete or into the construction part factory. And I will say that this is the one that is hardest for us to keep up with on the truck network front for throughput. It's the most, like the highest volume piece, and it's also, as it's currently set up, the furthest away. So I don't know if we're gonna go by belt quite yet. I think we'll be okay, but I would like the option, and all it will require us is to make a connection. It's there. We'll have to set up a ramp there, of course, but we've done that before, and we'll do that again. That's why our roads are exactly this wide. So this is the centralized concept, and we've also got one for the distributed concept. And we have it to address the one other piece in this factor we haven't figured out yet, which is the rail parts, which is the mixture of concrete slab and steel. Well, this steel plant sure does make some steel. It also has a bunch of slag, and there's usually some rock coming out of the two mines that it can accept from. So, last blueprint for this section, and I've got a marker as well there. We're going to place this here. This is a nice, tidy little way to using 3 separate recipes in the same crusher, and therefore this is, sort of smaller volume, but it does work. This is going to supply all of the ingredients that we need for the mixer. So let's trace that. First, the highest priority is this belt, which is a return belt out of here. What is this? Well, let's trace it back. The 2 previous sorters pull out crushed slag and manufactured sand, which means that what remains is gravel. So the gravel comes out here and is returned around with priority, both out here and in here, to be turned into manufactured sand. So that's how we keep the sand the highest priority. We'll always make sure that things are cycling back around, because without manufactured sand, we don't have the ability to run anything here. The next thing that we will be able to accept between here, and these are the rock and slag inputs. So you can put this by any factory, but you need to put rock and slag into this balancer if you have access to both. So for example, we can simply do this, and we would say, all right, well, priority to rock, because we can run this whole thing on rock without any slag. If we do have some slag to help backfill though, great. We'll also crush that bottom recipe here. So again, the manufactured sand, if that's what has cycled through a couple times, comes directly out here. Then if there's any slag being crushed, it's sent through here. If we do have crushed slag, we want to prioritize using it to get it out of the system and to save on rock. But if not, then the other input here is excess gravel. That comes out through here, and that's the crushed good input to this concrete mixer. And then, as we said, finally, the cement is also dropped in here. This will also require a connection to water. Well, this doesn't have rail parts yet. That's right. So we do need to go ahead and slap down a little manufacturer here. But this is pretty straightforward. So we'll simply take this here. We will connect this output and this one with a ramp, of course, to allow our trucks in to drop off and service the rest of the stuff in this area. I don't think either of these quite needs to be a conveyor 2. But then we'll have this turn around and spit out rail parts again right here. Like so. So we still need to connect the water from the steel plant itself. So I'd say we should go ahead and continue this line maybe to here. And you know what, actually, I kind of want to use this opportunity to maybe get ourselves a bigger storage here. There we go, that's better. Just go ahead and run back under here as previously planned. Great. So that's the move here. Need to go ahead and get this instant built so we're able to still service things. But I think the coal might be an issue. I'll figure it out. But I think this works otherwise, so I will go ahead and get this built. Oh, mentioned we need to, that's right, still do the water. All right, there we go. I think that should do it. Let's see. The coal will probably be an issue. Might have to move that out here, but we will cross that bridge in a moment. But yeah, other than that, I think this should work. I will let our trucks get to work on that. And similarly on this. Finally, that. So that'll take a minute, and we're going to make sure that everything, all 3 of these parts, is up, running, and functional before we start to delete anything over here. But then we'll be able to delete everything over here. So the cement production seems to be up and running. Rotary kilns are looking good, and we seem to be just fine on the fuel gas production so far. Of course, every bit of cement that we make is immediately being taken away, which is good. We have demand for it. And it's heading out to, primarily, hopefully, our main centralized fella. So the limiting factor here is still the cement, but I think everything else is up and running. I've kept these from being able to accept too much here. I want to wait and make sure that we're prioritizing the production here of our concrete right away. But so far that looks so good. Last thing we need, of course, out here is for the rail parts. And I think, unfortunately, this is what's soaking up our cement so far. But that's our last one here as well. Took a couple loans, not too worried about it. Having more cement will help us pay it off. So, by the way, also out here for coal, we do still want to make sure that we accept coal from that mine, but we weren't able to reach the coal storage anymore, so I put that over here explicitly, but we still spit out whatever coal we managed to sort here and just meet up in that same line. Easy enough change, and the throughput seems great here on the crusher. Our little trick is working. We are more than full here on the crushed iron ore. Our large steel storage is, well, pretty empty. We're still using it basically as quickly as we are able to produce it. What I might do real quick actually is say stop accepting these here. I'd like to prioritize getting rid of the ones we do have here first. So let's get these out. Do the same thing with the filter media. Still keeping all this until we're sure, but I didn't feel like making a whole new extra storage for no reason first, so this is now brought over here. The other thing we're going to do, just to kind of get our stockpile built up, is to boost this setup real quick. I don't think we need to worry about making more of these right now. In the short term, this is just about building up a stockpile. We're going from an integrated model with no internal storage, right, where it just fed directly in, to a distribution model. And so there's an export storage buffer that we have to fill. There's an import storage buffer here. There's one here. So it's going to take a little while, but that's a one-time thing. We don't have to be making all of that constantly. And we are done cutting through here. I don't really want to prioritize the extraction of this oil well quite yet. I mean, we definitely want to do that. That's probably a pipeline project as well, but I'm not going to spend our parts on it right yet. We're still recovering here and have some work to do. So we will allow our tree harvesters to come in and clear these trees out at their leisure. But this is complete, which is great. So what do we do with the terraforming crew? Where are they most helpful at this point? Might have them come back down here, actually, and clear a little bit of extra space in this area. I feel like we don't have the breathing room around the edge of our refinery that I want. So let's do that. Let's redraw this area again and bring that crew home. Have them take us to, I don't know, maybe we'll get a full 4-tile chunk out this way, just to start. And then ideally would love to also get into this space. And we'll probably take this whole chunk out too. This ridge is going to go slowly but surely. And then there's going to come a point where I'm very tired of it and we'll attack it very aggressively. But until then, this is all working mechanically, but the issue, quote unquote, is that we just don't have enough rock coming in from these mines. Good problem to have. They're too pure right now. That will vary over time. I've set it up so that we try to bring some in here, because we can't run this thing just off slag. We can use slag to reduce the amount of rock we need, but we can't make slag into manufactured sand, so we will need some rock. Some is on the way. All right, well, we are crushing the fuel gas supply, which is not ideal. It's actually a supply issue, not just a getting it out here issue. So there's a simple fix. The issue is that we're burning a lot of it. So what we're going to do is say that we are only willing to spend it on power if we've accumulated so much here. So that should, well, it's going to unfortunately reduce what we can spend on power, but we do need to make sure, of course, that we have the ability to make concrete. So we'll keep making it out here and up here. And in fact, I worried that that might be the case. And as a result, I got us going on the greenhouse tech, which is a nice little boost to our farming eco. I'm going to go deal with that real quick. Be right back. Yeah, so that strategy seems to be working. We are able to run excess fuel gas from this area out here, and we're hanging on. Of course, the trade-off, right, is that we aren't generating as much from power, and so we're getting these spikes again because we aren't running at full speed here because we are good on diesel. So I've unpaused our diesel generator out here, which is helping in its own right, but it's also increasing the demand on diesel, keeping the whole thing buffered and in balance-ish, hopefully. All right, so I'm thinking we can start to clean up some of this. At least the filter media part is no longer necessary. Our other filter media setup is good to go. So I'm going to start chipping away at the things that I'm very confident we've transitioned. Everything's been paused for a minute, so I'm pretty confident on all of it, but let's get even better than that if we can. All right, now I'm confident on the rail parts being generated out over this way. Very good. So I'm going to come over and clean up that area as well. We just got the greenhouse tech, so I'm grabbing the next recycling edict, by the way, as our next research, and I think it's time to go to the greenhouse setup. So greenhouses cost a lot of glass and parts 3, but are quite good. Quite good. So what we'll get is a more productive farm, and we like that. I'm going to do all 4 of them right away. I do want to have some excess crops so that we're able to make more fuel gas, although I do think that that demand is stabilizing out here. We have plenty, and I think as a result, we'll still end up using a decent amount of it over here for power. As you can see, we have a buffer that we're not quite touching. So I think that should all smooth itself out. but why not have more crops, right? It's quite a long upgrade process, but that is our fourth and final greenhouse. Very good. So this should definitely improve our productivity. A little bit wondering if our belts are going to need upgraded or if we're going to need to add another set of digesters. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll react as we need to. Hey, so last time we set up household goods, right? And at the time, 16 was just more than we needed. Well, we're just under that now, so I think it's time to add another assembly. Do that real quick. I had to change the order of these guys, unfortunately, because otherwise you end up with these connectors next to each other. Make sure these are lined up, the level 2 steel ones. Minor aesthetic function. But there we go. That should have us back in the green on household goods. Not that we need the Unity, but we'll always take it. All right, so I think this is all looking good and officially up and running, and to the point that I'm comfortable clearing all of this out finally. So let's do that. One big go. Very satisfying. Clear all of those. This can go, as can this goal line. This will take a minute, but I think these various parts should help pay off some of the debt we still have. And then we'll call it good on the concrete transition. It's pretty solid. Actually, ran through all of our limestone. Easy fix, but my goodness, yeah, we definitely had to get a whole bunch of cement up and running there, didn't we? Check out that fleet of trucks. I was going to Unity clean this up because I thought that'd be more satisfying. I don't think so. I think the truck swarm wins, huh? That was great. Well, we'll Unity do the rest of them. That's also pretty satisfying. And yeah, this water reservoir has definitely recovered pretty well, which is nice. Can unpause these and this. I think we'll say, yeah, we'll just sort of even out its contribution here. I think that the other two reservoirs are doing well. Yep, that's basically unremarkable, as is this one. Great. So our water main is working as intended, as hoped, as desired. And I feel like we start to have kind of like island-wide infrastructure emerge. You know what I mean? We've got tracks places, roads places, our water mains, our exhaust pipes. It's coming along. Like this has come a ways since we first landed here. It's starting to fill in, and it's starting to feel like a real landscape, a real cityscape even. I'm pleased with it. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. Over here, our bridge is actually making quite good progress on the steel front. We've got this whole segment left, this whole segment left, a little bit of steel chipping in here and there, but we're set on that and that, the two ends, and this whole section here. So that's pretty solid progress. We are running our amphibious folks up and down the slipway, of course, and I'm feeling good about our steel throughput. It's keeping up despite asking quite a bit of it. We have built how many construction parts, and specifically construction parts 3, which require additional steel, plus that bridge. We're putting a lot of stuff up all at once today. I'm going to add a little bit more limestone excavation throughput here. It's a combination of we happen to be going through a bit of a stone patch out here, but also, of course, we're consuming a lot more as we make all this cement. So I'm going to add one more and a pair of trucks to go along with that. We also completed the recycling edict and are researching a whole bunch of other random little edicts here as well. Nothing crazy critical, but nice to have things. We've just got so much Unity these days that I feel like we need to have something to spend it on productively. So there it is. But we can clean this up and this up and this up. And I think we are just about ready to tackle cracking. All right, I think we will call that complete on the concrete revamp section. One quick note, I'll admit this distributed module at the steel factory doesn't work quite as smoothly as I'd like. The lines are a little bit short here, so occasionally we do back up on one thing or another. It's not so much an issue as long as you have the trucks can drop stuff off option selected on logistics. As long as whatever is missing is available elsewhere in the base, a truck will come unjam it pretty quickly, but as a result, it's running something like, about 80% of the time here. So that's plenty to provide what little bit of concrete we actually need for rail parts on an intermittent basis and export still a pretty significant surplus out to the rest of the base. So it certainly serves the purpose, but something to be aware of. Time for cracking, though. So, what is the purpose of cracking? Well, it's also to fix when things get jammed up just out at the refinery instead. So far, our refinery has been structured to primarily produce diesel. When we are capped on diesel, the refinery stops working, it's done its job. That means that we have to find something to do with our various byproducts along the way so that we don't get backed up, so that we can keep making that diesel. Now, we've managed to find productive uses so far. We use heavy oil to fuel our cargo ships, we use naphtha to produce plastic, and we use both of them along with fuel gas that we make along the way in order to produce some power. But we do occasionally find ourselves with a bit of a surplus. The challenge is the variability that comes with the nature of a refinery. Our diesel consumption swings wildly based on how busy our trucks and ships are at that moment. So on occasion, our diesel consumption spikes and we produce more byproducts than we can absorb. We need a mechanism that can reactively absorb those spikes in production. Technically, flares did do that, so I guess more precisely we need a mechanism that can productively, reactively absorb those spikes. And that's where cracking comes in. So the cracking unit itself has a ton of recipes. But if you look at what they all have in common, they take a refining byproduct, heavy oil, naphtha, fuel gas, even diesel. And yes, that's right, technically diesel is a byproduct. It's the byproduct our refinery is currently optimized to produce, but if you wanted to orient around producing something else, like hydrogen, you'd have to treat diesel as a byproduct to balance. So they take a byproduct, they then use an energy source, hydrogen, steam, oxygen, to turn it into a different set of byproducts. So you use this machine to rebalance your refinery. You don't use every recipe in the same building, and you won't need every recipe in every refinery. What we'll do is look at the specific structure of this refinery, where that leaves us open to backing up, and then pick what recipes help fix that. So here, we're aiming for max diesel production, right? And in the case where we need a lot of diesel and are forced to make more naphtha and heavy oil than we can consume, we need to process it into something else. Bonus points if that something else can be diesel, right? We could come at the imbalance from two sides, absorb the byproducts, and reduce the need to produce more diesel. And wouldn't you know it, there's a pair of recipes that do just that. Both of these, using hydrogen as an input, as the fuel, spit out diesel and fuel gas. A little bit more diesel out of the heavy oil, which we know is more energetically dense. You need fewer units of heavy oil compared to naphtha to run a boiler, for example. So you get a little bit more out of it, but it's the same two things, and it takes the same fuel input. That's super convenient because it means we can use both of these in the same machine. There's no liquid sorter the way there is for a flat or loose belt, so mixed outputs on the same port are not great unless they go straight into another machine that can accept both, so this is actually quite convenient. The only additional consideration here is that, well, yes, we have this stockpile of hydrogen, right, which we can use to fuel this. And while the production of hydrogen, our current production of hydrogen in the electrolyzer, is at least correlated with when we would need to run this building, right? If we have excess heavy oil and naphtha byproducts, we also probably have excess ammonia, which is how we produce this. It would be good if we had another way to produce it. And that is where the hydrogen reformer comes in. You can think of the hydrogen reformer as a cracking unit as well that only has this one recipe for now. The fuel gas, so there's our byproduct, and steam, so there's our fuel, that then turns this fuel gas into a different byproduct, hydrogen here, and some carbon dioxide as waste. So you can see that with these last two buildings and their recipes, we're now capable to build a refinery that's optimized to produce any number of fuels from a single unit of crude oil. If you want maximum diesel production, easy enough. Using these three recipes, skip the power production that we're using our heavy oil for, find something else to run your cargo ships on, turn all of your heavy directly into diesel. Same thing with naphtha. Turn all of it, skip the plastic, directly into diesel. You've got this leftover fuel gas that comes out of this, well, great. You can use that to, in the reformer, turn it into hydrogen to run these two processes. And if you have any left over, mix it with some oxygen to make even more diesel, right? Now, the other way you could go about it is, let's say that you want to max hydrogen production, right? No problem at all. Take the diesel that you're making, turn it into naphtha, do the same thing with your heavy oil, and then turn all of that naphtha plus the other naphtha you're already making, mix it up with steam to make a ton of fuel gas and a little bit of hydrogen. Then take all of that fuel gas and put it into a hydrogen reformer. Now you've got a ton of hydrogen. And if you want to skip out on the oil refining stuff entirely, you can make a ton of excess crops, digest them into fuel gas, mix them with oxygen, and make all of the diesel that you need. Or directly mix all of the fuel gas from those crops and make hydrogen in the first place. This is doable. You can, and we recently did, launch a rocket without ever refining a single drop of oil. Today, though, we just want to absorb the extra heavy and naphtha that we occasionally produce in this refinery. We also need a way to produce that hydrogen and absorb any excess fuel gas. So we're just going to have these two buildings for now. We'll remove this fella. He is merely an explanation instrument, but I will jump in and connect these folks up real quick. So I'll see you in a moment when we're done with the pipe work. All right, I think this should work. Let's come back and start at the very beginning, right? Because the point is to handle overflow. And the lowest priority for everything that we produce so far is export to the rest of the base. This is what would overflow and become burned off. So if either of these storages is full, it means we have no other productive use for them today. And instead of burning them off, we'd like to turn them into diesel. So right before that step, we need a priority to go to storage, but a deprioritized, and oops, I forgot this one naturally. There we go. So the priority is to go to storage. From storage, right, we could send it to another cargo ship or whatever. But if this is full, the overflow comes out this pipe, little awkward out and around here to navigate the sour water stripper stuff, but it comes out here and meets up here at the entrance to the cracking unit. Same thing is true with naphtha. If this is full because we can't find a good use for plastic, etc., and we're using it elsewhere, then the deprioritized output comes out this direction, and again, but just from the other angle, meets up with the connector right at the entrance to the cracking unit. The cracking unit itself receives hydrogen from this set of our hydrogen storages, and the outputs, the diesel, comes straight out here and meets up with the diesel return line from the rest of our distillers, trying to still leave room here for a future sour water stripper. We'll have to redo this if we need to do a fourth one, but I could easily see us taking this whole chunk and flipping it around to double again in the future. These things continue to scale, so just trying to minimize the amount of work we'd have to do in that situation. The fuel gas comes directly back to the hydrogen reformer. This is a way that we can make sure that we're still making some hydrogen, enough to offset, because this is a roughly 1-to-1 production, roughly. And if we require 9 and we make 6, we're going to get back most of this. You could consider this almost a fuel recycling loop. It's not 100%, and so the rest of it will have to come from this electrolyzer. I have in the past, and think we may in the future, still want to bring in an excess fuel gas absorbing storage that we could then run into the hydrogen reformer as well. I think what we're going to end up right now with is a little bit more hydrogen than we want and not quite enough fuel gas, because we can continue to use fuel gas out here for power. But we'll rebalance this as we need to. There's really no way to perfectly predict it. We might as well just dive on in, see how it goes, and adjust as always. That is our typical philosophy. But with all of the concrete production that's going on, we've, I think, absorbed a lot of our fuel gas already. It's certainly not backing up out here at the anaerobic digesters for our wastewater treatment plant, nor with our crops, despite all of our recent expansion. Oh, I already had this conversation, but I left this here as a reminder to myself to say that we could turn crops via fuel gas into diesel as well. So I think this is good enough for a first pass. Let's go ahead, take a swing at it, see how it works. All right, so I think everything's up and running. The problem, I guess, is that we don't strictly need to do this right now because we actually don't have excess byproducts, right? This is a future-proofing exercise. We still certainly absorb everything that we can for power, and we still want that to be the case. But we need to test it. We have to see if it works. So I think what we're going to do is sort of temporarily cannibalize the naphtha here. So we're going to take the storage, turn it around, hold shift to confirm that we do in fact want to change this, flip the orientation of the pipe, and then there should only be one direction this can go, which is out this way. We should see 56 naphtha come through here and hopefully get processed in the cracking unit. And there it goes. So I think this will cycle twice maybe. And out comes a bit of diesel. Brilliant. That'll head back and go to the same output storage as the rest of our diesel. And the fuel gas, presumably shot straight through here, and yep, there we go, is accumulating in the hydrogen reformer. Very good. So this works. As I said, it's not... we do still prefer, I think, rather than turning it into more diesel, to use this naphtha for plastic production on occasion, although ethanol certainly works just fine here, and we even have a decent amount of excess. I still prefer, I think, rather than making even more diesel, to use it for other purposes first. But in the case where we have some overflow now, this is already in place, and we'll probably, in that moment, be happy that we already had it going. So that's it. That's cracking. Hopefully that was a helpful explanation. I know that the refineries in general can get a bit complicated, but the flip side of complexity is flexibility and power, and that's pretty cool. I like refineries a lot, but they can be a lot to wrap your head around, and there's a certain point in every effort in a refinery where my eyes start crossing and I can't see past the pipes and I just need to take a break. So it's It's all good stuff. It's very fun, but it can be a lot too. So hopefully this was helpful. All right, so with cracking done, the last thing left on the to-do list today is to finish this bridge. We've made some pretty good progress actually along the way here. We've got still a little bit of concrete there. Most of our steel is done. You know, we're, what is that, something like 6K concrete short? There we go. Yeah, this is coming along. We have the materials now. It's just a matter of dropping them off carload by carload. As that's going on, I've continued to grab just a couple odds and ends on research, really just some edict stuff. So that you know, I've got recycling maxed out. I've got farm yields up a little bit. Actually gonna knock that down just one, because what I'd love to do is get the overloaded trucks edict going. A little bit extra maintenance for an essentially a 15% increase to our vehicle network throughput, which is pretty good. We have, you know, over 100 trucks. So this is kind of like getting 15 free trucks for 20 trucks worth of extra maintenance. We'll take that. I mean, there's a reason that the vehicle cap is sort of something you bump up against, although this technology also increased that too. So for half a unity, this is one of my favorite edicts in the entire game, really. Everything else seems to be going just fine though, so I think I'll come back to you here in just a moment once we have the bridge all finished up. I guess one last thing I can tell you, we had a little bit of trouble bouncing back from that limestone bottleneck earlier because, yeah, I'm boosting these more than I want to as a result. So I'm going to get the Mixer 2 technology. This is just a double throughput in-place upgrade that we can give both these two parts of that process. There is eventually one for the chemical plant as well, but we're not there quite yet. The good news is that even unboosted, right, this with the organic fertilizer recipe is more than half of what this upgraded version will need. So we'll get essentially 75% of the total boost without any boost production level, if that makes sense. And this is very nearly back up to the top. And just like that, we have a second bridge and a third island. Very cool. To be honest with you, I don't quite have any grand designs for this island just yet. It'll probably just be a mining outpost for a little while if I had to guess, but we'll think on it. It's got a little bit of a lot of different things, so it'll be excellent to have access to, but I don't have like the same level of a grand plan as we have out here. But we'll think on it. We might get there. Let's see. But before I sign off, I mentioned a little bit of channel business. So like a month ago, we hit 500 subscribers, and I'd wanted to do at the time a little celebratory stream to hang out and do some Q&A, answer questions people might have about where the channel's headed, so on and so forth. It ended up not fitting into the schedule before Update 4 released, so I decided to postpone it so I could stay focused on getting this series up off the ground. A month later, 500 subscribers feels almost quaint. We hit 2K the other day, which means we've quadrupled since this series started and counting. It's been really wild. So thank you all, each and every one of you, for tuning in and for your support and feedback. It's been, seriously, one of the coolest months of my life. So next week, exact time and date to be decided and announced on here and on Discord, we're going to do a celebration and Q&A stream, belated, but with even more to celebrate, I suppose. And I think we'll actually fire this save up to work on in the background while we're hanging out. Don't worry, we're not going to make any meaningful progress, but we've got loans to pay down, stuff to pave, terraforming to work on, mostly site prep on Island 2 for the Electronics 2 factory, and we can bounce the ship out to the world map, keep exploring, so on and so forth, stuff like that. So if that sounds fun to you, keep an eye out and join if and when you can. Otherwise, the VOD will be on the channel as well. And if that's not your thing, no worries at all. I'll plan to do a quick recap of anything you missed around the base so you're all caught up at the start of the next edited video. So if you have any questions you want to submit ahead of time, please feel free. Comment below, post, or DM me in the Discord, etc. I'll keep an eye out and make sure to try to get through them all while we're live. That's it for today, though. Great progress as usual. Let me know if the to-do list here is helpful. I can try to use it a bit more consistently. I use it personally, but I always forget to swap over and bring it into the actual footage here. So if that is helpful, I'm happy to try to do that. But still, steel, concrete, cracking, another bridge, another island, pretty solid day. So as I said, keep an eye out for that time and date announcement. It'll be fun if you're able to join on the stream. And if not, no worries. As I said, you'll have a chance to either catch up or just see again in the next edited video. Until then, though, have a great rest of your day, and bye-bye.